There was only one glass, and it clearly wasn't mine. But that wasn't the first strange thing that happened that night. Macy had told me she was going to Portland for a 3-day offsite with her team. Strategic planning, she'd said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear as she adjusted her laptop bag over her shoulder. We're staying near the river. Some boutique place they picked to keep things creative. She added finger quotes like she thought it was all corporate nonsense. I didn't question it. She worked in marketing, offsites were standard. In fact, she'd been on a couple before, but this one felt different. She left Thursday afternoon with a quick kiss and a "don't wait up." That should have been the first red flag. We usually have this little tradition before one of us travels. She'll text me a dorky selfie from the airport, and I'll send her a photo of the dog doing something stupid. It's small, but it's ours. That didn't happen this time. No selfie, no text. Just radio silence until I messaged her around 8 p.m. and got a short, "all good, super tired, chat tomorrow." That was it. I told myself not to overthink it. People get tired. Travel days *CK. But something didn't sit right. Around 9:30, I realized I couldn't focus. I'd been half watching reruns on the couch, flipping through takeout menus I didn't want to order from, and feeling that strange itch in my chest. Restless, like I was waiting for something to fall. So I decided to grab my laptop and get out of the house. There's this new hotel a few blocks down, modern, sleek, with this ambient lobby bar where the chairs are too low and the music is just quiet enough to think through. I figured I'd nurse a coffee and try to answer some overdue emails. As I walked into the lounge, the scent of sandalwood and leather hit me. One of those places that tries too hard to feel expensive. A few people sat scattered around, but the bar was nearly empty. I made my way over to order something simple and hot, something that might make the night feel normal again. That's when I saw him. Sitting at the corner of the bar, elbow draped lazily over the counter, sipping from a heavy-bottomed glass, was Mr. Sanders, Macy's boss. I recognized him instantly. He'd come over for dinner once, a few years back when Macy had just gotten promoted. Stiff collar, bad jokes, a little too much wine. I remember thinking he was one of those guys who always seemed like he was on the edge of saying something inappropriate but knew just enough not to. He saw me and raised his eyebrows like he was trying to place me. "Macy's husband, right?" "Yeah," I said. "Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you guys were in Portland?" His brow furrowed for a second, just a second, but I caught it. He shrugged, lifting his glass. "Oh, that? Nah, the offsite got canceled Monday. Budget stuff. We're just doing everything over Zoom now." I stood there for a beat too long. "Canceled?" "Yeah, whole thing's off. Haven't been to Portland in months." He chuckled. "Honestly, I'm glad. I hate those hotel conference rooms." Something inside me dipped, like the elevator of a building falling too fast. I nodded, trying not to let the silence stretch into suspicion. "Well, small world," I said, forcing a smile, then excused myself with some half-baked line about emails and deadlines. I found a booth in the corner and sat down, heart pounding for no good reason, except maybe there was a reason, and I just didn't want to admit it yet. My coffee sat untouched. My laptop stayed closed. I kept replaying the way he said canceled, like it was no big deal, like there wasn't someone out there who had just told me the opposite. I checked my phone. Still no messages from Macy. No photos. No updates. Just a timestamp from that vague all good text earlier. I stayed in that booth for nearly an hour doing nothing, just watching the ice melt in my untouched glass and wondering how long something can be off before it becomes undeniable. When I got home, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I didn't expect her to be there. I didn't even think I'd find anything. But something made me look around anyway, like my body knew what I hadn't accepted yet. That's when I saw the glass. 2, actually. One was mine from earlier in the day, sitting near the sink with a few drops of orange juice dried at the bottom. The other sat on the living room table, a half-full glass of red wine. I hadn't opened a bottle. We didn't even have red wine. Macy prefers white, says red gives her headaches. There was a lipstick stain on the rim, bold, crimson, not Macy's usual muted pink. I stared at it for a while. Just stood there, looking at it like it might get up and explain itself. Like the glass might tell me what I was afraid to say out loud. She wasn't in the house. That much I was sure of. But someone had been. Someone with a bold lip and enough comfort to pour a drink and leave it sitting there like they had all the time in the world. I didn't touch it. I didn't move it. I just sat down across from it like we were about to have a conversation. At 1:13 a.m., the front door opened. Macy stepped in, a little too quietly. She had her phone in one hand, a jacket over her arm, a men's jacket now that I think about it. Something bulkier than anything she owned. She stopped when she saw me, didn't jump, didn't panic, just blinked like she wasn't expecting me to be awake. "You're still up?" she asked, setting her bag down. I nodded slowly. Didn't feel like sleeping. She didn't say anything at first. Just walked past the wine glass without noticing it, or pretending not to. She slipped off her shoes and stretched like someone who'd been in transit all day. Then the scent hit me. Not hers. Macy wears vanilla and jasmine. Whatever this was, sandalwood, maybe cedarwood, it was deep, masculine, and unfamiliar. "How was Portland?" I asked, tone even. She didn't flinch. "Long, draining. Flight was late, of course. Typical." I looked at her for a long time. "Ran into your boss tonight." That got her attention. Her eyes flicked up. "Really?" "Yeah, at the lounge. Said the offsite was cancelled." She shrugged, calm, practiced. "Guess plans changed last minute. You know how it is." And there it was. That shift. She sat down on the edge of the couch, crossed her legs, and looked at me with that exhausted, defensive energy I'd started to notice more often. Like I was the one causing the tension by asking questions. Like curiosity was a form of control. "You don't trust me, do you?" she said suddenly. I blinked. "What?" "You're always suspicious. Always analyzing everything I say. It's like I can't breathe without being interrogated." I started, but she cut me off. "I'm tired, okay? I'm tired of feeling like I have to explain every little thing. Like if I don't account for every second, you'll assume the worst." She turned it all around, effortlessly. And she was good at it. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just shifted the spotlight so cleanly that, for a second, I questioned if I was being too much. But then I looked at the wine glass again. I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have the words, but because I finally understood. This wasn't the beginning. This wasn't even the middle. This was the chapter where the audience starts to realize the script had changed a long time ago, and they were the only one who didn't get the rewrite. And I was the audience, watching the show, sitting in the wrong seat, wondering when the story stopped being ours. I didn't sleep much that night, even after Macy disappeared into the shower, letting the water run so long the mirror fogged up halfway into the hallway. I just sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall like it might blink and tell me what to do next. She didn't say goodnight, didn't come back to bed either. I think she stayed in the guest room. Or maybe she left again. Honestly, I don't remember. What I do remember is the silence. The thick, unbending kind that settles between people when something has broken, but neither of them wants to look directly at the crack. And yet, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. The next few days felt like rewatching a movie you used to love, except now you're catching all the things you somehow missed the first time. Little lines, sideways glances, scenes that used to seem harmless but suddenly feel too scripted, too polished. I started collecting evidence, first in my mind. Macy always had 2 phones. One for work, one personal. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Her job in marketing meant late-night client calls, unpredictable campaigns. That's what she told me. But recently, I noticed the work phone never rang when I was around. It didn't buzz. It didn't light up. She kept it face down or tucked deep in her coat pocket like it was fragile. Or loaded. And then there were the balcony calls. Every couple of nights, around the same time, she'd step outside with her phone and a blanket, said it helped her concentrate on client reports. I didn't press her. I mean, who was I to question the way someone worked? But after a while, I noticed she always came back in with this faint smile, like something funny had happened. Not the fake office laugh. The real kind. the kind that comes from inside jokes. It stayed on my mind longer than I expected it to. One night, I followed her quietly. Didn't interrupt. Just watched through the screen door as she leaned on the railing, barefoot, giggling at something I couldn't hear. Her voice was softer than usual, her posture looser, like she wasn't carrying the weight she carried around me anymore. I went back inside before she noticed. Pretended I'd been half asleep on the couch the whole time. She never asked. Then there were the clothes. Macy always had great style. I've never been the type of guy to notice trends, but even I could tell when she started dressing differently. Heels on days she worked from home. A silk blouse just to run to the store. Lipstick in the middle of the afternoon, then wiped off by dinner. She used to wear sweats and tie her hair back into a lazy bun when she didn't have meetings. Now, it was as if every moment of the day was a scene she might be caught in. Like she was always being watched or watching herself. And the scents. One night, she came home smelling like citrus and leather. That wasn't her usual. Macy had worn the same perfume since our second anniversary. I bought her the first bottle after a weekend trip to Monterey. She used to joke that it smelled like memories. Now she reeked of something else. Something bold. Something I wouldn't wear, but someone else might. When I asked about it, she laughed it off. Probably from the rideshare, she said. The driver had some intense cologne on. I nodded, but something in her voice sounded rehearsed. Not casual. Memorized. Like she'd run through this answer in her head a few times before opening the door. That was the moment I knew she was lying to me. Not suspected. Not wondered. Knew. I didn't confront her. Not yet. There's something strange about realizing someone close to you is lying. You don't always react the way you expect to. There's no dramatic outburst. No yelling. No demanding answers. Sometimes all it does is make you go quiet. Not because you've given up, but because now you're paying attention. Everything became a clue. I started remembering the over-detailed stories she told when she got home. Long-winded explanations about who said what at meetings. Full summaries of conversations I hadn't asked about. Macy used to be brief, efficient, but now every sentence sounded like it had been through editing. Clean, clear, just enough vulnerability to seem real, but never enough to feel natural. I started noticing inconsistencies. She'd say she was at lunch with her team, but the timestamp on a shared photo her coworker posted showed her at a different location. Said she had back-to-back meetings, but I overheard her in the bathroom humming along to music. I even heard her once say, "Okay, that's risky," and laugh. I knocked on the door. She turned off the speaker and claimed she'd been on mute the whole time. Maybe I would have believed her a few months ago, but now, I was collecting, not evidence for court, not proof I could shove in her face, just pieces, little truths she didn't want me to know. Because the more I gathered, the less it felt like paranoia. The more it started to feel like a puzzle I hadn't realized I was meant to solve. Her routines changed. She used to call me on her way home. Just quick check-ins. Need anything from the store? What should we do for dinner? Those were gone now, replaced with silence. Or worse, texts that felt like form letters. Running late. Don't wait up. Long day. She'd come home late, head straight to the shower, and stay in there longer than she ever used to. Not relaxing long. Scrubbing something off long. The kind of long where you emerge pink and quiet and distant. I asked her once if everything was okay. She said, "I'm just tired." But her voice had that distance again. The kind of tired that comes from pretending too hard. And then came the moment I stopped looking for comfort. It was a Sunday, late morning. I made us breakfast, eggs, toast, her favorite rosemary potatoes. She came downstairs wearing her robe, phone already in hand, and gave me a tired smile. I offered her coffee. She took it, but instead of sitting down at the table like always, she paced the kitchen, scrolling through messages, eyes darting toward the window every few seconds. "Expecting someone?" I asked casually. She paused. "No, just waiting on a delivery." I nodded, but I saw it. The flicker of panic behind her eyes. The way she bit the inside of her cheek. Something she only does when she's anxious. The doorbell never rang. Later, When she went upstairs, I checked the porch. No package. No missed deliveries. No notifications. No reason. Just a lie. I didn't confront her then either. I just wrote it down. Mentally. Like the rest of the details. At some point, this process stopped being emotional and started being methodical. Like I was building a case. Not for her, not for anyone else, but for myself. So that when the day came that everything fell apart, I wouldn't doubt my own memory. I wouldn't sit there wondering if I made it up. I was preparing. Not for revenge. Not even for a breakup. Just for clarity. Because the hardest part about betrayal isn't the act itself. It's the gaslighting. It's when the person who promised to protect you becomes the person who rewrites your memories. And that's what Macy was doing. Slowly, fully, flipping the script, making me question my instincts, blaming me for noticing. Every sign was there. The half-finished wine glass with someone else's lipstick. The smell of cologne that didn't belong to me. The lies she told about her boss, about Portland, about the timing of her return. The jacket that wasn't hers. The silence. The noise. All of it. She was writing a different story now. One where I was the paranoid husband. The insecure partner. The one who couldn't let go. Couldn't trust. But I knew the truth. I felt it. And now I had something better than confrontation. I had awareness. It was always going to be something small that gave her away. That's the thing about people who lie well, they forget to be sloppy. They keep the big stuff airtight, alibis rehearsed, locations mapped out, phone calls pre-cleared. But the little things, that's where the truth hides. And for Macy, it was her laptop. She never used to leave it lying around. Not even at home. It was always zipped up in her bag. Password. Face down. I never asked questions. Why would I? It was her work device. Probably full of client files and strategy decks I'd never understand anyway. But that morning, Saturday, I walked into the kitchen and saw it sitting open on the counter. Still on. Unlocked. It wasn't a trap. She wouldn't have been that careless if she thought I was looking. She was upstairs, shower running. Music playing. She thought I was out walking. Curiosity wasn't what made me look. It was instinct. Something deeper. A part of me that wasn't even trying to prove her wrong anymore. Just trying to confirm I wasn't crazy. The screen was open to a tab labeled, Reservation Confirmation, Lakeside Cabin, Kenmore. Not Portland. Not even close. I stared at the details. The check-in date matched the exact dates she said she'd been in Portland for her team strategy offsite. The reservation had been made with her personal email, booked 2 weeks before the trip, the same day she told me her office was reorganizing teams and doing some intensive planning. The cabin was described as a private, one-bedroom hideaway near the lake. Cozy, secluded, romantic. There was even a line that said, perfect for couples seeking a peaceful retreat. I stood there, frozen. No rage, no panic. Just this cold awareness settling in behind my ribs. So it wasn't just my imagination. Wasn't paranoia. She had lied. Deliberately, carefully, repeatedly. But I didn't storm upstairs. Didn't scream her name. Didn't confront her soaking wet in a towel while she invented new explanations on the fly. No, I needed more than shock. I needed certainty. I closed the laptop, wiped the counter clean, slipped on my shoes, grabbed my keys, and I drove. Kenmore wasn't far, just under 2 hours. Long enough to second-guess myself. Short enough not to talk myself out of it. The GPS guided me to a narrow road lined with trees that had started to turn orange at the edges. Like they knew something was ending. The cabin sat near the water, hidden behind a line of evergreens. Small, picturesque, the kind of place you'd see in a travel blog post with a caption like unplug and reconnect. I parked at the edge of the trail and walked in slowly, heart beating so loud I couldn't hear the leaves crunch under my boots. I stayed behind the trees, careful, quiet. Through the window, the curtain was slightly open. Not enough to see everything, but enough to see enough. She was there. Macy, hair tied up, barefoot, in a pair of old sweatpants I didn't recognize. She was holding a mug in both hands, the way she always did when she was truly relaxed. She was laughing. That's what gutted me most. Not the lie, not the location, not even the fact that she had taken something secret and made it soft. It was the laughter. I hadn't heard that sound in months. Not from her. Not with me. And sitting beside her was a man. Not Mr. Sanders. Not anyone I knew. Younger than her. Maybe my age. No suit. Just a black t-shirt and that comfortable, lived-in kind of body language. The kind you don't fake when you're around someone who knows you deeply. He reached out and tucked a piece of hair behind her ear. Her eyes closed for a second when he did. Not a wince. Not hesitation. Just comfort. She didn't pull away. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it. This wasn't a fling. This was int asterisk Macy. This was practice. This was her other life. The one she had been building on weekends and business trips and strategy offsites. The one she dressed for when she thought I wasn't watching. The one she called work, when she was slipping out the door early and coming home late, exhausted and somehow distant. This was who she was when she wasn't Macy, my wife. And maybe the worst part was, she looked happy. Not excited. Not giddy. Just content. Like she'd finally taken a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. I stood there long enough for my hands to go numb. Then I pulled out my phone and took a picture. Just one. Not of them touching. Not anything obscene. Just the two of them side by side through the window. Her face turned toward his hand resting on the back of the couch. I didn't need more than that. I didn't want to collect pain like evidence anymore. I wanted confirmation. Closure. When I got back to the car, I sat for a while before starting the engine. Breathed in the cold air like it could cleanse me. Like it might clear out the weight pressing on my chest. But nothing lifted. Nothing changed. She was still Macy. I was still me. And somewhere between those two people a marriage had disappeared. The drive back felt unreal. Like I was floating above myself, watching some guy who looked like me navigate traffic, park in the driveway, walk into a house filled with furniture that belonged to a version of us that no longer existed. I didn't speak when she came home. She arrived a few hours later, smelling like pine and campfire and someone else's memory. "Hey," she said, dropping her keys in the bowl near the door like nothing was different. Like I didn't know everything now. I nodded. Didn't look at her. She went upstairs to shower. When she came back down, she asked if I wanted takeout. I said no. That night, we barely spoke. She sat on the couch and watched something on Netflix, scrolling through her phone during the slow parts. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at the same blank document for an hour straight. I wanted to ask her so many things. Why him? Why lie? Was I just something she grew tired of? Or did I miss a warning sign so obvious it made her think I deserved this? But I stayed quiet, because questions only matter when answers are still possible. And this wasn't about answers anymore. It was about truth. And now I had it. I didn't tell her what I saw. Not then. Not the next day. Not even when I looked her in the eyes and felt absolutely nothing. That was the first real surprise. Not the cabin, not the man, not the lie. It was the way I felt when I looked at her and realized the love had been replaced by something hollow. Not anger. Not hatred. Just the heavy absence of anything. I didn't plan it exactly. I just knew I had to go. I packed a bag that Sunday morning. Macy was in the kitchen, humming some old pop song she used to play on long drives. She was making eggs, asking if I wanted toast. Her voice sounded light, cheerful, like someone who didn't know they'd already burned the bridge behind them. "No, I'm good," I said, zipping my duffel shut in the bedroom. I left while she was in the shower. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scribble a goodbye. I didn't leave a dramatic note or a playlist or a picture of the two of us with some ironic caption. I just walked out, like someone leaving a house they'd never lived in. I stayed at a friend's place for the first few nights. Jay, old college buddy. We hadn't talked in months. But when I texted him that I needed a place to crash, he didn't ask questions. Just sent the address and said, "Spare keys under the mat." I didn't tell him everything. Just enough. That it was Macy. That something broke. That I couldn't stay in the same house with her without breaking something else. He nodded, poured me a drink, and left the rest unsaid. The first night away felt unreal. I slept on a lumpy futon in a room filled with dusty bookshelves and posters of movies we'd watched in college. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering how many versions of myself had to die before I finally understood who I'd become. Macy called that night. Then again. Then again. At first, the texts were normal. "Hey, where are you? Can you call me?" Then a little sharper. "This isn't funny. You can't just vanish like this." And then the shift. "Are you seriously doing this right now? You're acting insane." By the second day, she was panicking. "Please come home. I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening. Tell me what I did." That one made me laugh. Bitterly. Alone in a stranger's kitchen. She knew exactly what she did. She just didn't think I would ever find out. Or maybe she thought I'd find out and still stay. That I'd swallow it. Let it rot in my chest and keep playing the part of the guy who forgives everything. Because that's who I'd been. For years. I stayed when she drifted. I stayed when she shut down. I stayed when she snapped for no reason, when she said things that were sharp and low and meant to wound. I thought love was supposed to endure that. Turns out, love is not meant to survive dishonesty. At least not mine. By day 4, her texts changed tone again. "I get it. You're punishing me. You think you're being noble? This is cruel. You don't get to ghost your wife." I read them. I didn't answer. I wasn't ghosting her. I was grieving. Not her. Not the relationship. I was grieving myself, the version of me who still believed her. The man who thought marriage meant something fixed. Something sacred. Jay left for work that morning and said, "You don't have to explain anything. Just, when you're ready, figure out what hurts the least." That stuck with me. What hurts the least. Because at that point, everything hurt. I missed the smell of my own pillow. The feel of our kitchen floor under my bare feet. The sound the front door made when it clicked shut behind me. All those things had been mine, ours, and now they were contaminated. Like someone had drawn over our life in permanent ink and I couldn't scrub it off. On the 5th day, I drove back. Not to return, but to end it. The house looked exactly the same. Like it was holding its breath. I stood at the door for a full minute before unlocking it. Macy had left the porch light on. She was inside, sitting at the table, hands wrapped around a half-drunk mug of tea. She wore an old blue sweater she only ever put on when she felt guilty. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Where were you?" she asked, voice cracking. "I thought you were hurt." I didn't answer. She started crying almost immediately. Not loud, not messy. Just this slow, quiet unraveling. "I thought you left me," she whispered. "I did," I said. A pause. "Then why?" Still, I didn't say anything. I sat across from her and took out my phone. Opened the gallery. Swiped to the photo I'd taken at the cabin. I turned the screen around and placed it on the table between us. She looked at it. Her face didn't change at first. No gasp. No denial. Just stillness. Then a slow inhale. "Who is he?" I asked. She didn't speak. Just wiped under her eyes and whispered, "It didn't mean anything." I almost laughed. "Nothing?" I said. "That looked like nothing to you?" She started talking. Not clearly. Not coherently. Just a stream of fragments. I was lost. I didn't plan for it to happen. I needed to feel seen. "You've been distant. You've been." I raised a hand. "Stop," I said. "Don't make this about me." "I'm not," she said. "But you have to understand. I don't." I cut in. "And I won't." Another silence. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Is this it?" I nodded. "I already left," I said. "I just came back for closure." Her hands trembled. Her lip quivered. But I didn't reach across the table. Didn't comfort her. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was finished. That's a different kind of silence. Not the tense, heavy one. This was the final silence. The one that comes after the last page, when the book closes itself. She tried to speak again, but I stood. I walked upstairs, packed the rest of my things. I left the ring box behind, empty, placed it on the center of the bed. No note, no message, just absence. As I walked out, she didn't follow. Didn't beg. Didn't scream. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to fix. Maybe she knew I didn't belong to the story she was still trying to finish. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The text stopped. The calls faded. 2 days later, she sent one email. The subject line read, "If you ever read this someday." I didn't open it right away. When I finally did, it was long. Measured. Like she'd spent hours editing it to sound just vulnerable enough. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She explained. She said it started small. Harmless. Compliment. Connection. A moment. Then another. She said she didn't stop because no one asked her to. She said I was safe but invisible. She said she felt alive being someone else for a while. Attached to the email was a folder of photos. From the cabin. From before. Some of her alone. Some of them together. In one, she'd zoomed in on his back and written, "Not who I thought he'd be." There was an audio file, too. Her voice said, "I don't recognize myself with you. I just wanted to burn the last part of something I don't want to bring home." I didn't listen to the rest. I closed the laptop, deleted the email, and for the first time I didn't feel the need to respond. Because some stories don't need an ending. They just need an exit. It had been a week. 7 days of silence between us. No texts. No calls. No new emails. Just that one message with the subject line, "If you ever read this someday." And the folder of carefully curated honesty attached like an apology that wasn't really meant to fix anything. I still hadn't responded. I wasn't sure there was anything left to respond to, but I knew I had to go back. Not for her. Not for reconciliation. Just to feel what was left. To stand in the ruin of what we'd built and see if any part of it still meant something. I chose a Thursday. Mid-afternoon, when I knew she'd be home. Macy had shifted to working remotely ever since her promotion, though I now suspected the only thing she'd been working on was her exit strategy. When I pulled into the driveway, it was strange how normal everything looked. The porch light still worked. The lawn had been cut. Even the recycling bin was out by the curb like it always was on Thursdays. There was no sign that anything monumental had happened here. Just a house doing its best impression of stability. I let myself in with my key. She hadn't changed the locks. The air inside smelled faintly of lemon and rosemary. Of course, she always lit that candle when she wanted things to feel safe. Comforted. When guests were coming, or when we were trying to reconnect after an argument. It was scent-based stagecraft. And now she'd lit it for me. She was waiting in the kitchen, seated at the dining table like a woman preparing for a deposition. She didn't smile. Didn't stand. Just said, "Hey." Her voice was small. Not sad exactly, just stripped of confidence. She was wearing that soft gray sweater she always used to pull on after a bad day. The one with the loose thread at the cuff I'd warned her would unravel someday. Maybe it already had. I sat down across from her. No pleasantries. No small talk. Just silence heavy enough to shift the atmosphere between us. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo again. Set it on the table just like before. She didn't flinch. "I know," she said quietly. "You never denied it," I replied. "What's the point?" she said. Eyes locked on the image. "You already saw everything." Not everything I wanted to say, just enough. Instead, I said, "Then help me understand." She leaned back in her chair like I just asked her to breathe underwater. "I don't know where to start." "Try the truth," I said. She laughed once, short and humorless. "You want the truth? The real truth?" I nodded. She exhaled slowly, her shoulders deflating. "I didn't set out to hurt you," she began. "But I can't say I didn't know I would." I stayed silent. "I didn't plan it," she continued. "It wasn't like I met him and thought, 'Great, time to ruin everything.' It was just slow. Crept in through cracks I didn't know we had." "You made the cracks," I said, sharper than I meant to. She nodded. "Yeah, I probably did. But part of me thought maybe we'd already been broken for a while." I looked around the room. The same room where we used to play card games and laugh about nothing. The same room where we'd eaten breakfast in silence for too many months to count. "Were we?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. I don't know, she said eventually. Maybe we were just asleep. And he woke you up? No, she said, shaking her head. He didn't wake me up. He just reminded me I used to be someone else. Someone who lied? That landed harder than I thought it would. She looked down, hands folded tightly in her lap. Someone who wanted to feel something, she whispered. I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. Every answer felt like a justification. Every confession felt like a calculation. But part of me needed to hear it anyway. What did he give you that I didn't? I asked. She finally looked at me. It wasn't about him. It was about me. I felt invisible, and I blamed you for not seeing me. But the truth is, I stopped showing up a long time ago. I studied her face. She looked tired. Not just physically, emotionally. Like someone who had spent months living in two timelines and had finally realized neither one made her whole. Why not just leave? I asked. Her answer came fast. Because I still loved you. That made me laugh. Not out of cruelty. Out of sheer disbelief. Love, I echoed. That's what this was? I know how it sounds, she said, tears finally starting to rise. But I wasn't trying to destroy you. I was trying to find myself. And did you? She looked away. No, there it was. The raw, unfiltered truth. Not some noble narrative about self-discovery. Not a tidy justification. Just failure. Just regret. But I didn't come for revenge. I didn't come to shame her. I came for closure. And I got it. I stood. So what happens now? She asked, her voice cracking. I move out. Officially. I've got a place lined up. She nodded, slowly. And us? There is no us, Macy. Not anymore. Her hands trembled. I didn't want it to end like this. No one ever does, I said. But we don't get to choose the endings. We just get to notice when the story's over. I picked up my phone, pocketed it. She stood, but didn't reach for me. You won't respond to my messages anymore, will you? No. She swallowed hard. Do you hate me? I don't, I said. But I don't forgive you either. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She nodded again. Fair. I walked toward the door, stopped, turned back, and said the one thing I'd been holding on to. I hope you find peace, Macy. I really do. But I won't be part of your healing. That's not mine to carry anymore. She broke then, just quietly. No sobbing. Just a collapse of whatever was holding her together. And I left. This time for real. I didn't take much, just what I needed. Couple boxes. My notebooks. Some clothes. Left the framed pictures. Left the memories. Left the ghost of who we used to be. I stayed at a friend's place for a while longer. Signed the lease on a small apartment by the water. Nothing fancy, but it had a view of the docks, and I liked the idea of something steady moving in and out of frame. Boats don't lie. That night I unpacked alone. Tossed my phone into a drawer. Lit a candle. Not lemon. Not rosemary. Something different. Something new. Something mine. I didn't leave a ring on the pillow. I left the box. Empty. Open. Obvious. No message. No confrontation. Just absence where something used to be. 2 days later, she emailed me. The subject line, if you ever read this someday. I almost deleted it. Curiosity won. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She explained. Said the affair wasn't love. It was a mirror. A way to see the parts of herself she lost with me. Said I was safe and she mistook that for small. Attached was a folder of photos from the cabin. In one, she'd written, not who I thought he'd be. There was an audio file. Her voice, quiet and raw. I don't recognize myself anymore. I thought destroying something would make me feel real again. I closed the file. Didn't respond. Some things deserve silence more than closure. 6 months passed. I stopped living like a background character. Took a night class in nonfiction writing. At first, just to occupy space. But that's where I met Taylor. No fireworks. No staged moments. Just two people sharing quiet. I never told her everything at once. She didn't ask. She listened. At a reading event, I told my story. Not to blame Macy, but to say aloud what I had carried. When I finished, I returned to my seat. Taylor stood, hugged me in front of everyone. That moment wasn't scripted. That was real. These days, I drink my coffee slow. I leave the porch light on for myself. And I never wait for someone to come home just so I can feel seen. I'm already here.